In the cold, unforgiving dawn of 1812, the rhythmic clang of hammers against iron echoed not from the burgeoning factories, but from the darkened mills of Nottinghamshire, Yorkshire, and Lancashire. Masked figures, known as Luddites, moved with grim determination, systematically dismantling the very machines that promised progress, yet delivered only despair. This was not mere vandalism. It was a desperate, organized rebellion against a new world order, a silent scream against the relentless march of an industrial revolution that threatened to consume their livelihoods, their dignity, and their very way of life. Before the relentless hum of steam engines and the clatter of power looms, England's textile industry thrived on the skilled hands of artisans. Generations of weavers, knitters, and croppers worked from their cottages, mastering intricate crafts passed down through families. A handloom weaver, though toiling long hours, commanded respect, earned a decent living, and maintained a degree of independence, setting his own pace and contributing to a vibrant community. Their work was a source of pride, a testament to years of apprenticeship and inherent talent. The rhythm of their lives, though demanding, was predictable, interwoven with the seasons and the close-knit fabric of village life. They were the backbone of a moral economy, where fair wages and quality craftsmanship were understood, if not always perfectly upheld, tenets. But the late 18th and early 19th centuries brought a seismic shift. Inventors like James Hargreaves and Edmund Cartwright unleashed innovations that promised unprecedented efficiency. The spinning jenny, the water frame, and eventually the power loom began to transform production. Suddenly, what took days for a skilled artisan could be done in hours by a machine, often operated by unskilled laborers, women, and even children. Factory owners, driven by profit, invested heavily in these new technologies, consolidating production into vast, impersonal mills. The cottage industry, once the lifeblood of rural communities, began to wither. The human cost was immediate and brutal. Skilled artisans, once proud and self-sufficient, found their wages slashed, their expertise rendered obsolete. A weaver who once earned a comfortable sum now struggled to feed his family on a pittance, forced to compete with the relentless output of machines. Unemployment soared, and those who found work in the factories faced grueling 14-hour days, often in dangerous, unsanitary conditions, for wages that barely covered subsistence. The quality of goods plummeted as speed replaced skill, flooding the market with cheap, inferior textiles. Communities fractured, poverty became endemic, and the traditional social safety nets frayed under the immense pressure. The promise of progress felt like a cruel joke to those whose lives were being systematically dismantled. Initially, the workers sought redress through traditional channels. They petitioned Parliament, appealing to ancient laws and customs that protected their trade. They appealed to their employers, pleading for fair wages and better conditions. But their pleas fell on deaf ears. The government, increasingly aligned with the interests of the burgeoning industrialist class, saw their grievances as obstacles to economic growth. The factory owners, with their new wealth and political influence, dismissed the workers' suffering as an inevitable, if regrettable, side effect of progress. Faced with starvation and systemic indifference, a new, desperate form of resistance began to coalesce. Whispers of a mythical leader, General Ned Ludd, began to spread through the darkened alleys and impoverished villages. While Ludd himself was likely a symbolic figure, a rallying cry rather than a real person, his name became synonymous with the burgeoning movement. The Luddites were not mindless destroyers. Their actions were calculated and highly organized. They targeted specific machines, the wide frames that produced shoddy, cheap goods, the shearing frames that displaced skilled croppers, the power looms that rendered handloom weavers redundant. Their aim was not to halt progress entirely, but to protest the misapplication of technology, to force employers to negotiate fair wages, and to preserve the dignity of skilled labor. They believed in a moral economy where human well-being took precedence over unchecked profit. The first major outbreaks of machine breaking occurred in Nottinghamshire in late 1000 811, quickly spreading to Yorkshire and Lancashire. Under the cloak of night, groups of Luddites, often numbering in the dozens, would descend upon mills and workshops. They moved with military precision, smashing frames with sledgehammers, often leaving behind notes signed by Ned Ludd or his army. They rarely harmed individuals, focusing their wrath solely on the machinery that symbolized their oppression. Their actions instill fear in factory owners and hope in the hearts of the desperate working class. For a brief, terrifying period, they held the balance of power, forcing some employers to raise wages or abandon the most exploitative machines. The government's response was swift and brutal. In 1812, Parliament passed the Frame-Breaking Act, making the destruction of machinery a capital offense, punishable by death. Thousands of soldiers, more troops than Wellington commanded against Napoleon in the Peninsular War, were deployed to the industrial heartlands. Spies and informers infiltrated Luddite cells, betraying their comrades for meager rewards. Trials were held, often with dubious evidence, leading to mass executions and transportation to penal colonies. The most famous confrontation occurred at Rawfolds Mill in Yorkshire, where Luddites attacked the heavily guarded factory, only to be repelled by armed guards, resulting in casualties on both sides. The rebellion, though fierce and widespread, was ultimately outmatched by the state's overwhelming force. By 1813, the Luddite movement was largely crushed. Its leaders were hanged, imprisoned, or exiled, and the machines continued their relentless march, forever altering the landscape of Britain. In the immediate sense, the Luddites failed to stop the Industrial Revolution or reverse the tide of mechanization. Their name became, for many, a pejorative term, synonymous with irrational technophobia and a futile resistance to progress. Yet, their legacy is far more complex and profound. The Luddites were not simply against technology. They were against a system that used technology to dehumanize, exploit, and impoverish. They were among the first to articulate the human cost of unchecked industrial capitalism, raising fundamental questions about the relationship between innovation, labor, and social justice. Their struggle highlighted the stark choice between a future defined solely by economic efficiency and one that valued human dignity and community. While they lost the battle, their actions laid crucial groundwork for future labor movements, inspiring generations to fight for workers' rights, fair wages, and humane working conditions. In an age where automation and artificial intelligence once again raise questions about the future of work, the echoes of the Luddites' hammers serve as a potent reminder. True progress must serve humanity, not subjugate it. Their rebellion, though suppressed, remains a powerful testament to the enduring human spirit's refusal to be sacrificed at the altar of technological advancement without a fight for a more equitable future.